Good evening and welcome to the February 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Upper Gwynedd Township Zoning Hearing Board. So I call this meeting to order. So before we begin, I am going to read a statement about the fact that we're having an e-hearing here. So as permitted by Act 15 of 2020, tonight's hearing is being held virtually. In addition to being stenographically recorded, tonight's e-hearing is being live streamed and it will be available on Facebook and on the township's website. I would ask that everyone please stay muted when they are not speaking. All applicants for tonight's hearings were notified in advance and provided instructions on how to participate electronically. Applicants were also requested to provide copies of any exhibits they intend to use so that the same could be made available for public review on the township's website in advance of tonight's meeting. I would ask that if any applicant tonight introduces an exhibit that was not previously provided and made available on the township's website, that the applicant make specific note of this so that the board and the public are aware. The Zoning Hearing Board has required that all applicants and their witnesses participate in tonight's hearing using both audio and visual capabilities. Anyone wishing to be a party to the proceedings is also invited to participate using both audio and visual capabilities. For those who wish to only provide public comment, you can participate via audio and will be permitted at the appropriate time to state your comments on the pending application. Please remember that you will need to state your name and address for the record before offering your public comment. All right, so now that we've gone over the preliminary matters here, let's start our first hearing, only hearing for tonight, and it's hearing number 21-02, and it's Fee Wynn of 815 Keating Drive, Lansdale, Pennsylvania, for properties located at the same address, for a variance from section 195-12.B5 to permit the construction of a deck with stairs with a rear yard setback of 41 feet, where 50 feet is required. The property is zoned R2 residential. So at this time, I would ask that any parties identify themselves for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Fee Wynn at 815 Keating Drive.
I'm Nee Wynn at 815 Keating Drive.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
I'm Cameron Kennedy with Kennedy Exterior Design. I'll be the contractor.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hitchens, could you please mark any board exhibits at this time?
Certainly. First, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind me asking, Nee, could you spell your first name just so I have it correct for the record? You're muted still.
Okay. It's N-H-I.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to mark the following documents as exhibits for the zoning hearing tonight. The first one will be marked as ZHB1. This will be the proof of publication and the legal notice for tonight's hearing. ZHB2 is going to be the verification of posting of the property for tonight's hearing. ZHB3 is going to be a copy of the township's website notice for tonight's hearing. ZHB4 is going to be a copy of the applicant's application as submitted to the zoning hearing board and as is available on the township's website. ZHB5 is going to be a copy of the parcel map with addresses for all individuals or residents who received individual mailed notices as required by the zoning ordinance. And ZHB6 is actually a document that was submitted, I believe today by the applicant to the zoning hearing board, but was not made available on the website because it was only received today. This is a picture of the rear of the existing house or structure on the property. And at this time, I would like to share my screen so that everyone who is watching tonight can at least see what this exhibit looks like. And of course, I'm happy to bring it back up on the screen if referenced by the applicant.
say, Patrick, if I could just add, it was a picture actually that I took and
Oh.
provided to the board and to the applicants.
Thank you for that correction, Van. I apologize. So it was a picture taken by our zoning officer. Oops. A picture taken by our zoning officer of the rear of the property. So as to help both the zoning board, the applicant, and the public understand the nature of the request. So everyone can see that, and I'm marking this as a ZHB 6. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchens. Okay, Ms. Nguyen, go ahead.
They'll need to be sworn in first.
I think Cameron's gonna talk, right?
Is it okay if I talk on their behalf?
Yeah, so perhaps we'll do this. If possible, I would prefer that all three of you get sworn in at one time in case if any of you provide any comments, we know that it's sworn testimony. And
Okay,
then I would, while I'm not the attorney for the applicant, I would say she could certainly say to you as her expert / engineer, please explain to the board what I'm asking for and why I deserve it.
Okay.
And raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear testimony I'm about to give is the truth, the whole truth, you do so swear?
I
I
do.
do.
Thank you.
I do.
Go ahead.
All right, so Fee, do you want to just walk them through kind of what we're proposing and why we're proposing it?
Sure. So we are proposing that we have a sort of landing deck built with stairs so that we could access our wonderful backyard. We did not realize that, you know, our house is backed up right into the township one of the setbacks. So, but originally it was a cost saving measure, but now we would like to have a deck in the backyard.
And perhaps it might be helpful, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a few questions that might help speed things along as well for the application tonight.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Hitchens.
Thank you. So first, Mr. Kennedy, if you could, are you an engineer or are you the architect? What is your relation to the plans that were submitted with the application?
So I'm the designer and a registered contractor with the state of Pennsylvania.
And Ms. Nguyen, so I think you had already testified that your property or the house that was built there is built almost right up against the 50-foot setback requirement. Is that correct?
I mean, that's my understanding.
Within 1 foot, yes.
Within 1 foot. And Ms. Nguyen or Mr.
Yes.
Kennedy, if you could speak, is your property a abnormally shaped? I mean, it appears to be you're almost like not a corner lot, but it's not a total rectangle or square, your property, is it?
Right. I think it's more like a slice of a pie.
So you actually don't have a straight line when it comes to the 50-foot setback for your property as it relates to your house. It would actually be on an angle, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
And what you're proposing tonight is to construct a deck off of your existing house. Is that correct?
That's right.
And Mr. Kennedy or Ms. Nguyen, what is the size of that deck?
The deck is 18 feet by 10 feet. So the deck will protrude 10 feet towards the rear property boundary.
And because you had testified that you're already 1 foot from the edge of the 50-foot, you need relief for the additional 9 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 feet, that's right.
And Ms. Nguyen, is this the minimum amount of relief that you would need in order to construct your 18 by 10 foot deck?
I believe so.
Mr. Kennedy, would you agree that this is the minimum relief that you would need in order to construct this deck?
Yes.
Have you, Ms. Nguyen, spoken with any of your neighbors regarding this proposed deck?
Oh, of course.
And what did those
They're
neighbors,
wonderful. We love our neighbors. Yes.
and what did your neighbors say about it when you talked to them about it?
They said all we want to do is make our backyard beautiful, and they loved it. They loved the designs. We've had people on Ridgeview and Keating. They just, yeah, fully support it.
And I should ask, have you heard any negative or opposition with regard to your proposed deck with those folks you spoke to?
I have not.
And if I may, I'd shown the picture before, and if I can bring it up again. Mr. Kennedy, is this the area where the proposed deck is going to be located?
Yes.
And that's the area where I'm showing with my cursor right now, the arrow, correct?
Right, so the 18 feet starts, if you're facing the rear of the house, just to the left side of the rear slider, and will extend almost to the corner of the house where you see the sewer clean out there at the corner.
Okay. So it actually doesn't go the entire length of the house, does it?
No.
And obviously it's located there because you mentioned the existing slider, correct?
Right, without some type of deck or landing or some structure there, the rear door of the house is rendered useless.
In your opinion, Mr. Kennedy, would this at all be a health, safety, or welfare concern with regard to any of the neighboring properties, this proposed deck?
I would say the absence of a deck would be a safety or a health issue.
And Ms. Nguyen, you didn't actually you didn't site this house yourself. This house was built by somebody else and you bought the house, correct?
Correct.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. And unless the applicant has further testimony they want to provide, either by themselves or through their expert, Mr. Kennedy, I have no, it could probably be opened up to the board for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Hitchens. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Okay, so hearing none,
Hey, Mark, it's Jack. I do have a quick question. It's just from a safety standpoint, which I think is great. When we looked at the where the deck would run from the sliding door over to the far right end of the house, there are 3 windows to the left of that. Is there a door over there for entrance and exit from the home in the back?
No, the rear slider door would be the only entrance you see, other than the basement steps.
Oh, is that
where
what
you
I'm
can
looking
kinda
at?
see
I'm not
the-
sure. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you see that
So
where
really-
the foundation wall kind of juts out there. There's steps down to the basement over there, but that's the only rear entrance to the home.
So Cameron, if I was in their home on that level, my only way out is that slider.
Correct.
Yeah, so you brought up the safety issue and I agree with it. Okay, thanks.
okay, thank you. Does anybody else on the board have any questions? Okay, so at this point, I wanted to check, Mr. Reeker, has anyone submitted any written comments regarding this application?
I received no calls or any written questions or documentation.
Okay, great, thank you. And are there any callers on the line for public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Does anybody else, would anybody else like to say anything before we go ahead and close this matter?
You know, Mark, I should add, and it was a while ago, and I think I copied you all, but for the record, I did send an email to the zoning officer in Lansdale Borough. And he responded by saying that he believed they had no comment, there was no, they saw no problem with the proposal, and that he would refer the application to the Director of Parks and Recreation. He said he would do that. And if there was a comment, that we would hear about it. And that was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And since that time, we have heard nothing.
And just so the record is clear, Van, the reason you did that is because the property actually abuts up against a park that's owned and located within Lansdale Borough.
Yeah, White's Road Park, interestingly enough, is a recreation facility that is owned and operated by the Borough of Lansdale.
And I just want to clarify, Mr. Hitchens, the park is located in the township, but it's owned by the borough. I just want to make sure I clarify that.
Yeah, I think part of it's owned, I think part of it straddles both municipalities.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I apologize, but thank you for the correction.
So I make sure that that was clear. All right. So
Yeah, just for the record, the entirety of White's Road Park is in Upper Gwynedd. It starts at White's Road, as a matter of fact. And so if there are any borough residents listening, just to be clear and careful, the entirety of this park is in Upper Gwynedd Township. However, owned, operated, and maintained by the borough.
okay. All right. So I'll just one last chance. Does anybody have anything else before we go ahead and close? Okay, so hearing none, I will now go ahead and close this hearing. So would a member of the board like to make a motion with respect to this application, or would the board like to discuss this matter in executive session? And just to clarify, I believe if we were to go ahead and approve this, I believe, and Mr. Hitchens, you can clarify this for me, we would be making a motion for a variance from section 195-12B.5 to allow them to build a deck with a rear yard setback of 41 feet where 50 feet is required. Is that accurate?
I would be correct if somebody would like to make that motion.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that they're allowed to build the deck at 41 in an area that required 50. Is that right, Patrick? Is that the right number? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the table. Would anyone like to second the motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have the motion and we have the second on the table. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and any opposed? So the ayes so have it. So the motion's granted. All right, so thank you, Ms. Wen, for coming tonight. All right, so would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn at this point?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, so we have a
Second.
motion.
Thank
We have
you
a
so
second.
much for fitting us in. This is exciting.
All right, so
We'll be over for barbecue.
Absolutely.
all right, so with a motion to adjourn on the table in a second, all in favor? Aye. And the ayes have it.